Hello, team, and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pierce. This is a Ukraine war news update for the 21st of February, 2023. Let's get straight to the opening gambit, the usual one. Going to go to the Ukraine figures for the Russian losses for the day before. Usual caveats that this may not be accurate. It could be a large dollop of propaganda. Russia don't produce the same sort of figures, but I actually find it more accurate than some people may give it credit for being. And it is certainly indicative of what's happened the day before. Right, 760 liquidated personnel lost. So that's a fairly high number. It's above average, but actually slightly below where it has been over the last sort of week or so. 10 tanks, 9 APC. So fairly decent figures for losses there from Ukraine's point of view, but less than what they had been. Again, 4 artillery systems, 5 drones, 1 vehicle or fuel tank, and 1 piece of special equipment. So somewhat lower figures equipment-wise, I would wager. And the troop losses are sort of par for the course for, I guess, a period of quite intense fighting, of offensives and counteroffensives and whatnot. A bit of news from Russia on fire. So a new bridge being built in Novosibirsk mysteriously caught fire yesterday evening. The blaze broke out over 100 meters into the air on the new construction. So that's not good news. That's a new big bridge thing being built. Yeah, it doesn't look good. Okay. Last night, Russia was mystified why its missile launch, says Tim White, spectacularly failed this morning with all its rockets exploding almost as soon as airborne. Now the invaders claim the Ukraine has moved the Patriot air defense system to the border in Kharkiv region. I don't know that that be true, but it is certainly some interesting footage coming out about that. I think there's one just below here that shows them sort of going up into Kharkiv and basically exploding straight away. Why is that? Who knows? But interesting. It does make you wonder why they. I mean, either they were really there's some sabotage to the programming, really poor uh, level of equipment being used, or they were being taken out by air defense. Who knows? Um, just a few points from the daily synopsis of what's going on in Ukraine from the Euromaidan press, and this is so. First thing to note was. Russia's changed its tactics for missile strikes. So Ukrinform reports citing Yuri Ignat, the spokesman for the Ukrainian Air Force Command. This week, Russians have changed tactics for missile strikes. Previously, they used to launch massive attacks approximately every 2 weeks. Now they fire missiles in small portions over the Dnieper and the southern Bug, making them travel as low to the ground as possible. Russian forces also began to use nighttime strikes. They fire missiles at night, while they used to launch Shahid drones at night and then missile strikes in the morning during massive attacks. Now the Russians are hiding missiles within the beds of rivers. They are using both the Dnieper and the southern Bug, making missiles travel as low to the ground as possible. This way, sometimes they manage to bypass the air defense systems that can potentially destroy them. Interesting change of tactics here. And they are expecting possibly 100 missiles plus in missile attacks to sort of mark the anniversary of the war, February the 22nd to the 24th. So over the next 2 or 3 days, expect a large wave of missile attacks. And according to intelligence data, Russians are pulling additional forces to the Donetsk direction. That's Avdiivka, Bakhmut, Vuhledar, Mariinka, all the usual places where they're attacking. Several weeks ago, about 160 battalions were concentrated there. Now there are already 190. Even if their units are under strength, that is a lot of people. We understand that most likely they are preparing for something. Most likely they will launch the offensive on February the 24th. Now, there's been talk that the Russians have lost a huge amount of troops in the Vuhledar area. There might be as many as 5,000 Russian troops ready to hit that to reinforce their offensive in the Vuhledar area alone. Um, Russian sources are currently reporting an extremely high level of activity at military airfields and air bases near the Ukrainian border. A large number of combat aircraft, including fighters and strategic and tactical bombers, are said to have arrived within the last several hours. And that was pretty recent. That was from this morning. So uh, there was rumor about activity at the airfields over the last sort of few days, and then some people denying it, and now if this is to be taken seriously, there could be a heightened bunch of activity for the Russian Air Force over the border. Yesterday, Yevgeny Prigozhin, who's in charge of a Wagner PMC, he's having this tussle with the regular Russian army and the MOD, has said that deliveries of artillery shells were stopped due to his complicated relations with, hey, it's complicated, with unidentified officials in the Russian Defense Ministry. So we've had claims from Wagner personnel themselves on the ground in video appeals saying that they just have no ammunition. Predominantly, I would think, mortar and howitzer ammunition shells. Prigozhin claimed that the fighters are starving for shells due to the introduction of new restrictions on the purchase of ammunition. So, not going well for Wagner in the Bakhmut area. It seems like the Russian regular forces are supplanting them, and causing. If they're not supplanting them, then not giving them the stuff that they need. And in fact, there was a video evidence of there being animosity between regular soldiers and Wagner on the ground. I think there's I didn't show it, but there's some video of some pretty big arguments between them and whatnot. Ukraine's intelligence department GUR says Russia is preparing to select full-time students for its next mobilization. It says alert stations are to be established for military commissars to issue summonses to students. Now that there's been all this talk about a second massive mobilization. Will it happen? Will it not? No, it won't. Yes, it will. I guess we'll see. But it wouldn't surprise me if the end of this month, after the anniversary of the war has been gone, that you will see a huge mobilization drive. Speaking of the war, and this is the first time. So Putin is presently, as I am recording this right now, speaking to giving a big talk to. Here it is. Everybody's waiting for Putin to address a federal assembly in Gostiny Dvor in Moscow. Most likely, he will make announcements regarding the war in Ukraine. Indeed, not just that. He's called it a war. So, and he said, we have attempted every opportunity for peace. We did everything possible to resolve this in a peaceful way. We will now carefully solve each task step by step. Putin has hundreds of military bases around the world. He's claiming all sorts of different stuff coming out. It is them that unleashed a war and not Russia. So he's called it a war as well. I think that's the first time it's been called a war, certainly by Putin. Sevastopol and Crimea was their next target. Putin on the events in Ukraine. It was the West that started war, and we use force to stop it. I believe this is the first time that Putin has addressed this special military operation as a war. Majority of our people support our actions in defending the Donbass. All the usual kind of stuff. Put an end to the West goal is to put an end to this once and for all. So on and so forth. I'll report this in greater depth tomorrow, I would guess, or possibly in the extra this afternoon. I've got a lot of stuff to talk about in the extra. So there you go. That's Putin giving his kind of response, I guess, to Biden doing his stuff in Kyiv. High Representative for the EU for Foreign Policy, Josep Borrell, officially warned China. So I talked yesterday about how China is potentially helping Russia with non-lethal aid, and we may see a bit of mission creep, so that they help them with military aid as well. But the EU has warned China that any arms deliveries to the Russian Federation would be a red line in relations with the European Union, and I hope that red line is really a red line. Chinese Foreign Ministry replied, it's the US, not China, that is constantly supplying weapons to the battlefield. Yeah, to defend from an aggressor, from an overtly bellicose, aggressive nation who is committing war crimes and is not got an internationally sanctioned war. So yes, that is correct. The US has no right to point fingers at China and won't agree to the US dictating or even putting pressure on China-Russian relations, says spokesman Wenbin. But yeah, that's highly problematic. China and Hungary have declared themselves ready to cooperate to end the war in Ukraine. On that note, we'll see where that goes. we are starting to see this sort of axis of evil, this axis between Russia, China, Iran, and the forces who are against the West's hegemony. US power structure. It's this counterbalancing um, posturing. But Hungary is certainly being a thorn in the side of the EU. Revealed leaked document shows how Russia plans to take over Belarus. This has caused quite a bit of a stir over the last 24 hours. A document written for Putin's presidential administration envisages the total incorporation of Belarus into a union state with Russia by 2030. Lots to talk about there. Lukashenko's been discussed quite a bit recently because he's an interesting one. When Crimea was 2014, when Russia went into Crimea, he actually stood in defense of territorial integrity of Ukraine because at the time he was quite powerful within Belarus and he had his own independent kind of power structure. But since then, he's been propped up by the Russian government. He basically wouldn't be the president if it wasn't for Putin. So realizing that, he's changed his tune and he's now sort of Putin's lapdog in many respects. He recognizes that if he goes against the Putin narrative, then he stands to lose an awful lot, potentially his own life. So that's why you see a quite a different Lukashenko than you saw 8 years ago. Dutch military intelligence is claiming that Russian special services are preparing to attack infrastructure targets, including gas and oil pipelines. Obviously, the Dutch with Shell, Shell is a British Dutch company. They have a lot of interest in the North Sea, so the Dutch are on it. The Russian special services are preparing to attack infrastructure targets, including gas and oil pipelines, submarine cables, and wind farms in the North Sea. I mean, we could see a Nord Stream 2. Goodness me, I wrote that big article on Nord Stream pretty much saying at the end of the day, I don't think Hersh's article is any cop. However, that says little about who actually did the Nord Stream explosions. I sit on the fence, marginally think that the US, marginally think that Russia were responsible, but really could go either way. Anyway, goodness me. Nord Stream 2 pipeline is a really divisive subject. I've had friends actually, contacting me through Facebook and whatnot, Americans vehemently arguing it's America, real pro Hirsch, Seymour Hirsch. And I have lots of pro Ukrainian people vehemently arguing it's Russia. And I'm somewhere in the middle going, hey, I'm not sure. I can envisage both sides doing it. Uh, yeah, who knows? But it really is a divisive issue, that one. Anyway, to continue, the visual contrast between an American president with his signature aviator sunglasses walking in sunny downtown Kyiv with the pugnacious, eloquent president of Ukraine and a Russian president who has yet to visit the war zone is striking. So you've got plenty of foreign dignitaries coming to Ukraine to visit Zelensky, and it all looks very it looks good from a PR point of view, while Putin, staying back in Russia, doesn't go anywhere near, sent Shoigu to fly into like the outskirts of Crimea, so on and so forth. In fact, there's a great image yesterday. So Biden's wearing, with his aviators, wearing a blue and yellow striped tie, and in the background there's these sort of blue and yellow buildings, a blue sky, yellow top building, and it's just a photo, a great photo, and a great photo opportunity, really. So Biden's sort of hitting the right tune there, I guess, uh, which is in stark contrast to Putin. So a year ago, let's think about what happened a year ago today and see if we can trust Russia. So a year ago today, Russia's ambassador in Washington, so this is yesterday, I just would like to express our position, if you don't mind. I will start from basic things. There is no invasion and there is no such plans. Wonder how that went. Oh yeah, you were lying. So yeah, interesting point here. Was he lying, or genuinely did the ambassadors around the world not know that the Russians were going to invade? And actually, the latter's probably more accurate. There is evidence to suggest that it was so secretive, the war, the eventual decision to invade and the plans for the invasion. It was concocted by very few people in the higher echelons of the Kremlin that an awful lot of people didn't know, who probably should have known. So there you go. Uh, End result is either way, don't trust the Russians on what they say. Okay, let's get on to military aid to Ukraine. Official list of American additional security assistance for Ukraine from the website of the American Department of Defense. Around just under $500 million is a price tag put on it, but as you know, all of this stuff, most of it would have been paid for already. Depends whether it's going to be replaced, etc., etc. HIMARS ammunition. In fact, most of it there isn't a huge amount of significantly different stuff here. This is basically just that continual flow of ammunition and equipment that they need. So HIMARS ammo, 155, 120 mil artillery and mortar rounds, air surveillance, 4 air surveillance radars. That's going to be useful. Additional Javelin systems, 2,000 anti-armor rockets. So that would be for the Javelin, one thinks. 4 Bradley Infantry Fire Support Team vehicles, talk about that in a second. 2 tactical vehicles to recover equipment, Claymore mines, anti-personnel mines, demolition munitions, night vision devices, tactical secure communication systems, and medical supplies, spare parts for other field equipment. So nothing crazy, but there are these 4 Bradley M7s, or likely to be Bradley M7s. These are the M7 is a point and shoot and point and laze system. It obtains precise range information to the target via its laser rangefinder and other sensors. It estimates target coordinates with a push of a button. Vehicle has a built-in battle management system with a GPS and inertial navigation system. The system determines the location of the vehicle on the map and as well as target's coordinates. It then calls to fire nearby artillery units via a digital battle management system. There is an identification system which prevents calling fire on friendly units. On a number of occasions, the M7 demonstrated it can put precision indirect fire on a target with standard 155 mm artillery shells. Standard shells land within 50 meters from the designated target, so on and so forth. You get what it does. So this is a fire management system rather than the kind of infantry fighting vehicle type thing that we often see the Bradley is. Depends how it's configured, so on and so forth. But they're sending 4 of those to help the Ukrainians. US is considering the transfer of Abrams tanks to Ukraine from storage bases and not new ones produced at factories, writes Breaking Defense with reference to US official Stanley Brown. The decision still has to be made. So this is interesting. So the idea is that they're not sending them from stocks because they need to build them from scratch, because they don't want the Russians getting hand on depleted uranium armor that is used on the Abrams tanks. So depleted uranium armor is a very dense armor that uh, stops very dense projectiles from entering the armor. So on normal kind of metal armor or even composite armor, the very dense projectiles basically turn the armor into, it melts it, if you like, and turns it into liquid and fires through the armor and then sprays everywhere, and it's all pretty horrible. All goes right through the tank, even. So you need armor that's denser than that which is being shot at you. And so they use depleted uranium, which is incredibly dense, and it stops the very dense projectiles from going through the armor. Anyway, it's technology they don't want the Russians to get hold of, so they didn't want to give them Abrams from their stocks, which meant they had to build them, which is why the waiting time is to next year. Well, if they haven't made that decision yet, that's a bit of a delay, to be honest, and it could be that they come from stocks, which means they could get there quicker. He continues, there potentially could be a combination of built and out of stockpiles, he said during an interview with Breaking Defense on the sidelines of IDEX 2023 in the UAE. So that's another sort of expo. So that is an interesting development, but who knows whether this guy, Stanley Brown, is to be trusted on this matter. I don't know. Rheinmetall, the German defense manufacturer, has said that Marder IFVs will be there in March. But ammunition for the Gepard, because they're having to restart that, they're going to make it themselves rather than Switzerland do it, because Switzerland are refusing to export it or allow other countries to export it. So Rheinmetall are going, well, sod it, we'll do it ourselves. And so Switzerland's defense industry loses out, I guess, because of that neutrality that they have baked into their laws. So yeah, a bit of a shame that they're going to have to wait till summer. I don't know how quickly they're going through that ammunition. And this is supposedly the first photo of one of USA's Bradley fighting vehicles in active use inside of Ukraine. Um, I don't know whether that's true. There's a bit of sky there. I don't know if you can tell that's Ukrainian sky. It could be a Ukrainian cloud there. Not sure. So Serbia refuses Russian fighters and will buy French ones. This is massive because one, Serbia is broadly pro-Russia, uh, and two, this shows that the Russian export industry is in trouble. So instead of buying Russian fighters, Serbia plans to buy French Rafale because it has become impossible to maintain Russia's MiG-29s, the last batch of which Serbia received in 2017, according to President Alexander Vucic. That is significant. Thus, Russia continues to lose the Serbian arms market, one of the last loyal European countries that did not join the sanctions and has been buying weapons from Moscow since Soviet times. I think that is significant. And I think you're going to see more and more of that. Places like India thinking twice about buying Russian stuff. And that is a huge component of their economy, their defense industry. They're the second biggest defense exporters in the world. I don't think they will be. I don't think they'll be in the top five next year. Be interesting to see. Oh, I really want to see the figures for 2022, actually. This says the new voice of Ukraine. I don't know how accurate this is, but Ukraine will get long range missiles as soon as the first half of the current year, says the defense minister. Um, so they'll receive long range missiles capable of striking targets at a distance of 150 to 200 kilometers. That's about 90 to 125 miles, but they won't be ATACMS, or they may not be ATACMS, he says. Not that it actually will be ATACMS. So yeah, it looks like almost certainly won't be. But Britain has promised long range missiles and promised to be the first country to break that or to cross that red line. But we don't really know what missiles they might be. Could be the Storm Shadow, which are generally sent from planes. So I don't know whether there's going to be some adaptation sent from the ground. They can be, I think, sent from ships as well. The French have done that with them. Or it could be another British, could be a Harpoon missiles. We've sent a few Harpoons previously, but they are anti-ship missiles. But whether they can be used in other ways, I'm sure they can, because the Russians are pretty good at doing that at the moment. And finally, in any case, the EU will approve new sanctions against the Russian Federation by February the 24th, said the head of European diplomacy, Joseph Borrell. EU member countries should approve the latest package of sanctions against Russia in the next hours, the bloc's foreign policy chief, Joseph Borrell, has said. Speaking to reporters, he said it's going to be approved in the next hours before the 24th in any case. The proposed 10th package of sanctions, estimated to be worth some 11 billion euros in trade flows, is designed to make financing the war more difficult and starve Russia of parts needed to build arms for the front. So this is really important because those parts seem to still be getting through, if not in large flows, they are still able to make some things, which allows them to continue to wreak havoc on Ukraine. So there you go. Thank you so much. That's the news for today. There will be a lot to be said, no doubt, on what President Putin says. That's all coming through right now. As you can see from the socials, he'll be saying lots here, no doubt. But yeah, I'll report that later. In the meantime, thanks so much for your support. Take care, and check out my frontline update coming soon.